Stay to the end, because number one is the sign whose emotional unavailability is the most complete, the most convincingly disguised, and the most painful to discover when you realize what's actually underneath the surface they present to the world. Most people assume emotional unavailability means someone doesn't care. The truth is almost always the opposite. The people who become most emotionally unavailable are those who felt the most, lost the most, and learned the hardest lessons about what happens when you let someone all the way in. Today we're naming 7 zodiac signs most likely to carry this pattern, and the specific wound behind each one. Psychologists describe emotional unavailability not as a personality trait, but as an adaptive response, a protection strategy built in response to relational injury. The person didn't choose to become unavailable. They became unavailable because being available once cost them something they couldn't afford to lose again. Understanding the wound behind the wall changes everything about how you see the person behind it. Number 7, Sagittarius. Sagittarius's emotional unavailability looks exactly like freedom and adventure, which is precisely why it's the most misread on this list. The constant movement, the lightness in relationships, the refusal to be pinned down, most people mistake it for confidence. It's distance dressed as philosophy. The wound is almost always an early experience of feeling trapped, a home that suffocated, a love that came with conditions they couldn't meet. From that, Sagittarius built a psychological architecture around mobility, always having an exit, always keeping enough distance that nothing can close in. Psychologists call this freedom-based avoidance. Intimacy resisted not because it isn't wanted, but because closeness became associated with loss of self. Sagittarius wants connection. They just haven't found a way to have it without feeling trapped. Number 6, Gemini. Gemini's emotional unavailability is the most intellectually sophisticated, which makes it the hardest to identify. Gemini is genuinely engaging. They ask questions, make you feel seen, and then at the precise moment real intimacy is about to happen, they pivot. A joke, a new topic, a return to the surface. The wound is being known and rejected. Somewhere in Gemini's history, the person they revealed themselves to fully found that version insufficient. And Gemini, whose identity is built around their mind, incorporated that rejection at an identity level. Psychologists call this cognitive emotional shielding, using intellectual engagement as a barrier against vulnerability. Gemini redirects closeness into something safer, so skillfully that the other person often doesn't realize what happened until they're already in love with the surface. Number 5, Capricorn. Capricorn's emotional unavailability is the most structurally embedded, built in before they had language for it. Most Capricorns grew up where emotional expression was discouraged or simply had no place. Feelings were private, needs were managed alone. The correct response to difficulty was to be composed and functional. Psychologists call this developmental emotional suppression, where consistent absence of emotional attunement in childhood produces an adult who has genuinely lost access to a significant portion of their emotional interior. Capricorn isn't choosing unavailability. They're operating from a limited emotional vocabulary that was never fully developed. The wound isn't a single event, it's an absence. The absence of anyone who showed them that feelings were safe to have, safe to bring to another person. Number 4, Aquarius. Aquarius's emotional unavailability is the most philosophically defended, making it simultaneously the most convincing and the most difficult to penetrate. Aquarius has built a worldview around the superiority of intellect over emotion, independence over need. And that worldview isn't performance. They genuinely believe it. But the wound behind it is emotional need going unmet in a way that felt humiliating. The child who needed comfort and didn't receive it. The young person whose vulnerability was used against them. Aquarius's response was to construct a self that appeared not to have those needs. Psychologists call this defensive self-sufficiency, developing an ideology of independence as protection against the pain of needing and not receiving. Aquarius doesn't believe they're unavailable. They believe they're evolved. And the difference between those two things is where all the pain lives. 3 signs left. And number 1 is the sign whose emotional unavailability is the most heartbreaking because it comes from the deepest capacity for love. Stay with me. Number 3, Scorpio. Scorpio's emotional unavailability is the most paradoxical because Scorpio is one of the most emotionally intense signs in the zodiac. They feel everything. They want depth and total connection more than almost any other sign. And yet they are simultaneously among the most fortified and the most difficult to truly reach. The wound is almost always specific betrayal, a moment when Scorpio gave someone full access to their vulnerability, and that access was violated. From that moment, the calculus changed permanently. Psychologists call this betrayal-induced emotional fortification. Intimate betrayal producing layered defenses preventing that level of access from being granted carelessly again. Scorpio isn't unavailable. They're available at an extremely high price. The ones willing to pay it, who stay through the testing, prove their safety over time, find something on the other side that almost nobody else ever reaches. Number 2, Virgo. Virgo's emotional unavailability is the most self-inflicted, a precise psychological description of what happens when someone holds themselves to a perfection standard that makes emotional expression feel permanently premature. The wound is early criticism, emotions treated as excessive or inconvenient. They cried and were told they were dramatic. They needed comfort and received correction. Over time, Virgo learned to process everything internally before anything was allowed to emerge. Psychologists call this emotional pre-processing compulsion. Emotional expression blocked until the feeling is fully understood, categorized, and neutralized. By the time Virgo finishes processing, the moment for expressing it has usually passed. And people mistake that delay for absence of feeling rather than what it actually is, an almost unbearable excess of it. Number 1, Cancer. Cancer at number 1. Because Cancer's emotional unavailability is the most counterintuitive, the most hidden, and the most painful for everyone involved. Cancer is the sign of nurturing and emotional depth. Nobody expects Cancer to be emotionally unavailable. But here's the truth. Cancer can be the most emotionally unavailable sign of all, and nobody notices because the warmth they offer is so genuine, it obscures the fact that they are never fully present in the way they are capable of being. The wound is the deepest on this list, loving completely and being left, building a world around someone and having that world collapse, trusting their heart completely and finding it led them somewhere that broke them. The response isn't coldness, it's preemptive protection dressed as care. Cancer gives warmth so they never have to give access. They nurture so the relationship stays at caretaking rather than mutual vulnerability. Psychologists call this caregiving avoidance, using the nurturer role to remain relationally significant while maintaining emotional distance. Cancer loves you. They show up for you. They remember everything. But there is a version of themselves, afraid, lonely, desperately wanting to be held rather than to hold, that almost never gets to come out. And the people who love Cancer most are often the ones who never get to meet that version at all. 7 signs, 7 wounds that built the same wall. Freedom-seeking, intellectual deflection, developmental absence, defensive self-sufficiency, betrayal fortification, emotional pre-processing, and caregiving as distance. The wall was never about you. It was built before you arrived. And the only thing that moves it, slowly, carefully, with no guarantees, is safety. Consistent, patient, proven safety. Drop your sign in the comments. This is AstroMind.